You probably think of power as something loud, something explosive, something that shakes the earth or controls empires. But the real power, the kind that bends timelines, that humbles even higher beings, that echoes through dimensions, that power is silent. It doesn't scream, it doesn't demand, it doesn't come from domination or force. It comes from presence, from alignment, from a deep remembrance of who you really are beneath the dust of human conditioning. And the truth is, only about 1% of humanity ever unlocks these 7 powers. Not because they aren't available to everyone, but because most are too distracted, too attached to the illusion, too afraid to let go of what isn't real. I didn't just want to talk about these powers. I wanted to experience them. So I went to places most people wouldn't dare. I've meditated in abandoned temples where the air felt like it was made of secrets. I've fasted in silence for days until the veil thinned and whispers from other realms started speaking in my bones. And what I discovered is this: the most powerful people on earth don't look like gods. They look like you, like me. But their energy is different. Their vibration is like gravity. You feel it before they speak. They walk into a room and something shifts. Not because they want attention, but because they carry a frequency that reality recognizes. And it's the same frequency that higher beings, those watchers, guides, and ascended intelligences honor, because they know this is a soul that remembers. The first power only 1% carry is the power of energetic integrity. It sounds simple, but it's rare. Most people leak energy, constantly saying yes when they mean no, hiding their truth to be accepted, living a double life between who they are and who the world expects them to be. But the 1% don't do that. They understand that every word, every thought, every action is either strengthening or weakening their field. So they walk in radical alignment. If they feel something, they honor it. If they know something, they speak it. If something's off, they don't ignore it. They don't fragment themselves to belong, because they know that integrity is not moral, it's magnetic. The more coherent your inner and outer worlds are, the more power your energy carries. And higher beings, they don't respond to titles or rituals. They respond to frequency coherence. They bow to souls who are whole. The second power is the power of presence. Sounds cliché, right? But it's everything. You see, most people aren't here. They're in the past, replaying regrets. Or in the future, chasing ghosts. Their body is here, but their soul is scattered. And so life passes them by. But the 1%, when they're with you, fully. Their eyes don't just look at you, they see into you. Their silence isn't empty, it's charged. Something in you relaxes in their presence, because they're not trying to be anything. They are. They've trained their nervous system to be a vessel for the now. And the now is where all power lives. If you can't be fully present, you can't channel the divine. You can't wield sacred energy. You can't receive the codes meant for you. Presence is the gateway. And it's a power that even celestial beings respect, because in presence you become a living portal. The third power is the power of non-reaction. This one's hard, especially in a world that thrives on triggering you, poking your wounds, exploiting your fears. But the 1% have mastered the art of stillness, not because they're numb, but because they've transmuted their triggers. When chaos erupts, they don't flinch. When someone attacks, they don't collapse or retaliate. They observe. They breathe. They respond with clarity, not emotion, because they understand the game. They've stepped outside the matrix of drama. They no longer feed the loops of karma. And in doing so, they become untouchable, not because they're disconnected, but because they're centered. You can't control someone who no longer reacts. And higher beings, they see this as mastery, because in the higher realms, vibration is everything and reaction lowers your frequency. Stillness, on the other hand, sharpens it. The fourth power is the power of self-sourcing. The 1% don't chase love, validation, or energy from outside. They generate it. They become their own source. They don't need external motivation, they're fueled by inner fire. They don't collapse when they're alone, they expand. They don't seek permission, they move from inner knowing. This is rare because most people are addicted to being seen, loved, approved of. They're constantly reaching outward. But the 1% have turned inward and found something no one can give or take away. A connection to the infinite, a sense of self that is rooted in the divine. And so they walk differently. They don't need to prove. They don't need to argue. They don't even need to be understood. Because their power doesn't come from being liked, it comes from being lit from within. The fifth power is the power of truth embodiment. Saying the truth is easy. Living it, that's a different game. The 1% don't just believe in truth, they embody it. Their life is a sermon. Their presence is a transmission. They don't preach, they are the teaching. You can feel it in their energy, in their choices, in the way they move through the world. They've let go of illusion, of performance, of pretending, and they're willing to be seen, even when it costs them. That's why higher beings respect them not for their perfection, but for their authenticity. Because to live your truth in a world built on lies is a revolutionary act. It rewrites timelines. It liberates others. It shifts the collective field. But here's the question I want you to ask yourself right now. How much of your life is still built on roles, masks, and inherited scripts? And what would happen if you tore it all down and lived only from what's real? Because that's where your power begins, not in becoming something more, but in letting go of everything you're not.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
There is a place deep within you that most never reach. Not because it's hidden, not because it's protected by some cosmic lock, but because it requires a surrender so absolute and undoing so fierce that the ego simply won't survive the journey. This place is the soul forged, the inner crucible where the rarest power of all is born. Not through study, not through effort, but through fire and silence. You don't stumble into it. You get pulled in when life breaks you open in ways you didn't ask for. When the external world collapses and the distractions you once worshipped no longer work. It's the moment when you're stripped of everything you thought was you, your roles, your name, your status, your plans, and all that's left is the raw pulse of existence. And that's when it happens. Not immediately, but slowly, like the first ember in a long-dead fire. You start to feel something ancient awakening, something unkillable, something that was always there. This power isn't flashy. It doesn't come with visions or fireworks. It comes in the quiet, in the stillness, in the dark night when no one's watching, and you finally stop trying to fix your pain and instead listen to it. Because the soul forge doesn't create strength by armor, it creates strength by exposure. It shows you that your vulnerability was never the weakness. It was the doorway. And when you walk through it, when you stop running from your own shadows and instead sit with them like old friends, something shifts. You stop identifying with the wound and start recognizing the wisdom inside it. That's when the rarest power is born, the power of inner alchemy. Inner alchemy is the ability to transmute pain into purpose, fear into clarity, and loss into liberation. It means you no longer need life to be easy, to be powerful. You no longer need others to understand you to feel valid. You stop waiting for the stars to align and realize they've always been inside you. And here's what most people don't realize. Pain is not the enemy. It's the invitation. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every failure was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to refine you, to initiate you, to strip away the noise so you could finally hear your soul's voice. And that voice, it doesn't scream, it doesn't beg. It simply knows. I've sat in silence for days, fasting not just from food, but from identity. I've watched every fear crawl to the surface like shadows needing light. And I'll tell you honestly, it's terrifying at first. Because we're addicted to noise. We're addicted to being busy, being seen, being someone. But in the forge, none of that holds. You're forced to confront who you are without the performance. And that's where real power begins. When you stop trying to escape your darkness and start mining it. Because that's where the gold is buried. That's where your soul hid the code you came here to activate. And here's the truth most won't tell you. Higher beings don't respect ease. They don't bow to people who never faced themselves. They bow to those who've walked through their own fire and emerged not bitter, but brighter. They respect the ones who chose silence over noise, truth over comfort, presence over performance. Because that's what it takes to wield the power that bends reality. You can't fake it. You can't buy it. You have to earn it in the forge of your own becoming. So I ask you now, when life burns you, do you retreat, or do you allow the fire to sculpt you? When silence comes, do you run or do you listen? What might you discover if you stopped trying to be more and started remembering that you already are? Because your power is not about becoming something new. It's about becoming true. And the only way there is through the fire. There's a rhythm beneath everything. A current that moves through all things, through the earth, through the stars, through our bodies. It's not sound. It's not thought. It's something far more ancient. It's the silent pulse. And those who learn to feel it, to move with it, to become it, gain access to powers that don't need to be spoken to be known. These are the final two powers, and they exist beyond language, beyond belief systems, beyond even the mind itself. They live in the realm of direct experience. If the earlier powers are about refining your energy and mastering your inner world, these last two are about merging with the source itself. And when you do, you begin to shift reality not through effort or expression, but through pure frequency. The sixth power, the second to last of the seven, is the power of energetic transmission. This is the moment when your presence alone becomes a teaching. You don't have to say anything. Your energy speaks for you. It's like an invisible wave that moves through people, places, even time. You walk into a room and people feel calmer, more awake, more honest sometimes without knowing why. You're not trying to change them. You've simply changed yourself so deeply that your field does the work. This doesn't happen because you've studied more. It happens because you've become less. Less ego, less identity, less resistance. You've cleared out the noise, and what's left is a pure signal. And that signal is felt at a soul level. It's not something you do. It's something you are. Imagine this. You're sitting across from someone in pain. You don't give advice. You don't offer solutions. You don't try to fix them. You just be. Fully present, fully open, fully connected to that silent pulse within you. And in that space, something starts to shift, not just in them, but in the field around you both. It's as if your presence creates a container where truth can rise, where healing can unfold without force. That's energetic transmission. It's what true masters carry. It's why higher beings respect certain humans. They feel the signal. They feel the resonance. And they know this one remembers. The seventh and final power is the most elusive. It's the power of non-separation. It's not something you achieve, it's something you remember. It's the direct knowing that there is no other. That the world you see outside is just a reflection of the world inside. That everything is connected, not metaphorically, but literally. This power awakens when you stop seeking and realize there was never anything missing. When you look at the sky and feel it inside your chest. When you touch another's hand and feel yourself touching your own soul. When your breath becomes the breath of the universe. This is not a belief. It's not a philosophy. It's a state. And in that state you no longer manifest from ego, you manifest from unity. Most people try to manifest from separation. They say, I want this, or I need that, as if the universe is something outside them that they must convince or manipulate. But the 1% who hold this final power don't manifest, they merge. They align so deeply with the pulse of creation that what they desire becomes inevitable. Not because they forced it, but because they became the frequency of it. They understand that the world doesn't bend to the loudest voice, it bends to the most coherent vibration. And coherence is born in unity. So I'll ask you a question that only your soul can answer. What would your life look like if you stopped trying to control it and started communing with it? If every moment became a conversation, not with your thoughts, but with the entire universe speaking back to you in silence? Because that's the pulse. That's the place where the final power lives. It doesn't shout. It doesn't push. It just is. And when you enter that space, you're no longer trying to change the world. You are the change. You're no longer seeking light. You are the light. Not metaphorically, energetically, tangibly, undeniably. And that's when the higher beings lean in. Not to teach you, not to correct you, but to recognize you as one of them. Not because of what you know, but because of what you've become. We've walked through the fire. We've sat in the silence. We've touched the pulse that moves beneath all things. But now we face the final trial, not a mountain to climb or a demon to slay, but something far more subtle, far more dangerous. It's forgetting. Not the kind that happens when you lose your keys or misplace a name. I'm talking about spiritual amnesia, the kind that creeps in slowly, silently, wrapping itself around your awareness like fog. It happens after the awakening, after the breakthrough, after the moment where you know. And then life pulls you back into its rhythm, into bills, relationships, distractions, noise. And the light begins to dim again, not because it's gone, but because you stopped looking, you stopped being. And that's why 99% abandon the path, not consciously, not dramatically, but gradually. They forget who they are. They forget why they came. Even the most powerful souls are not immune to this. In fact, the more light you carry, the more the world will test it. Not to punish you, but to purify you. To see if your power is real or just potential. Because here's the secret most don't want to face. Awakening is not a one-time event. It's a commitment, a discipline, a practice. You don't just arrive at truth and stay there. You must choose it again and again, especially when it's inconvenient, especially when no one is watching, especially when the old life comes knocking and says, "Come back, it's easier here." The 1% who keep rising, they're not superhuman. They've just made a vow, a soul-level promise to never go back to sleep. They've faced the final trial and chosen to remember, even when forgetting would be far more comfortable. They've built habits around their awareness. They wake up and align before they reach for their phone. They question their thoughts instead of believing them. They speak only what is true, even when it costs them approval. They sit with discomfort instead of escaping into dopamine. They honor their energy like it's sacred, because it is. And when they fall, which they do, they rise fast, because they've trained themselves to hear the subtle whisper of their own soul, even in the loudest chaos. You see, the final power isn't about having visions or performing miracles. It's about staying awake. It's about remembering your light when the world goes dark. It's about walking through temptation, through distraction, through heartbreak, and still choosing presence, still choosing truth. Still choosing love, not the fluffy kind, but the fierce kind. The kind that says, "I will not abandon myself no matter what." And that kind of love. That's the real miracle. That's the power that turns ordinary humans into living legends, into spiritual giants, into navigators of this dimension who don't just survive the matrix, they rewrite it. So I ask you now, not as a challenge, but as an invitation, will you remember? Will you remember when it's hard, when it's lonely, when it doesn't make sense? Will you remember who you are when everyone around you forgets? Will you walk the path not because it's easy, but because it's true? Because if you do, if you really choose to remember, every day, in every moment, no matter how small, you'll rise. Not in the way the world defines success, but in the way the universe recognizes truth, by your frequency, by your stillness, by your radiance. And one day, without needing to try, without needing to prove, you'll find yourself standing in a room, and the air will shift, people will feel it, time will slow. And higher beings, the ones who've been watching all along, will lean in and whisper, "One of us has returned." And in that moment you'll know you didn't just find the 7 powers, you became them.